All right, I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea where I'm gonna go with this, but one thing that I do see a lot, especially like these days, is that I feel like people try to like hide from whatever like that they're kind of going through, like in their head or just like whatever it is that they think that they need to like kind of like avoid in a sense. And I feel like a lot of the times it's really just because people like obviously, like we're in a new age, a new digital age now. People are like avoiding things more than ever now. People aren't really as like present as like they used to be, especially after 2020. Everything is kind of like obviously like different now, but especially like these days, I see a lot of people not really like listening to their soul at all, and it's crazy because it's like I feel like I feel like to a certain extent, like your soul, listening to your soul and letting it guide you instead of like your heart, your mind, or your or just like lust. I feel like it's way more beneficial for you if you kind of like let it guide you pretty much. And what I mean by that is like a lot of us are so distracted by noise from like let's say from like lust. I see so many people just being in relationships just because like they just want to have frequent sex or just like have someone with them and stuff like that, and it's just like crazy because it's like they're going through like these like problems because like they're letting like lust like kind of take over for them, whether or not they're single or if they're in a relationship, especially like amongst guys and stuff. I see a lot of guys just like letting lust be the number one factor, the number one like driving factor for someone like kind of like living, like you got people like that go out every weekend, sometimes every day, and they their whole like kind of like main goal in their life is to just like get as many women as possible and just pretty much just like ignore the problems and drink and smoke and do maybe a few drugs every now and then or maybe like frequently. And it's just crazy because it's like and it's like people wonder like why they're not really happy, and it's because they're not letting their soul guide them, and it's crazy because you know like like there's the soul, the mind, the heart, and then I would say just lust. And I feel like people kind of like make their soul like last in line, which I don't really get because it's the most important factor of like going through life, like for example, even with like letting I'm not saying like you can't like guide with your heart, but people like guide with their heart and their mind too much. Like let's say their heart, like they in their heart maybe feel like that they have to like stay in a relationship just because like oh like it makes them like feel like wanted or accepted or validated every day. And it's crazy because it's like usually the people that are like that, they don't really have like self-esteem to really like carry on that baggage that they kind of been hiding forever now. And I just find it really crazy because it's like why would somebody want to like do that? And I know like it's easier said than done, right? And I've been a victim of it too, don't get me wrong, but when you let your heart when you let your heart guide you, then and I'm not saying to never do it either because it does, it is a beautiful feeling of letting like your heart guide you, but I feel like sometimes even your heart can even deceive you, like it doesn't it just like it doesn't have like a mind of its own in a way because it just wants like that affection, that validation, and then going on to like people leading with their mind. And I think I know for sure I was a victim of this before too. I would let like my mind I guess guide me, and I think what that would lead to is pretty much just like overthinking everything that you do in your life, and it's kind of like oh like thinking way too logical. And I'm not saying thinking logical is necessarily a bad thing, but if you're thinking about like all the outcomes, if you're someone like me, like everything I do, everything I say, or like any action I do, whatever it may be, like I always think like long term wise and just like how is it gonna like affect me or maybe someone else in the future or right now or whatever it may be. But if you like always think like of every outcome, then you're just never gonna do anything. And I feel like even the smartest people like get like they get affected by that. and going back to like letting your soul like guide you. I feel like your soul like it's the most like quietest in the room, but it's really the most important because like coming from firsthand and stuff, like I feel like I'm at the point right now in my life where every breath I take or every day I wake up or whatever it may be, I feel like my soul is genuinely guiding me for the life I want. And obviously like I'm not even close to being where I want to be, but I feel like I just have that appreciation for just everything I have right now. And if you always like kind of think in your head like, oh, I want more, and there's nothing wrong with that obviously, then it's like you're kind of just like thinking like with your head, with your mind a little bit. And that's when like going back to if you lead with your mind, with lust and with your heart too much, then I feel like it's gonna kind of get you into predicaments that like you shouldn't want to be in. But I feel like with that being said, and this might sound a little bit counterintuitive a little bit, but I feel like you should kind of like pick and choose when like you let like your heart or your mind guide you. And I think for sure lust should be always like at the bottom at every like decision you make, because I see a lot of, especially a lot of guys like they let um they let lust like kind of take over for them, and it's like that's like all they want to think about. And it's like it's all really for nothing, you know. They do things just because like they think like that's what you need to do as a guy or a man in their head. And it's really crazy to think about, because it's like that's not like, I feel like that's not really the way to go about life, like I feel like at the end of the day, your soul knows all the answers. I just feel like you just have to find it. And I feel like guiding with your soul is the hardest thing to do to a certain extent, because a lot of people don't really have that mindset to like really look in the mirror or be in a room but with themselves for more than like 2 hours, 5 hours, or whatever it may be, for a long extended amount of time. Personally, for me, I love being alone. I'm not gonna lie. Like even when I was in relationships, like I feel like I always, not always, but I frequently needed like time to myself and stuff like that too, because I do feel like that having solitude time and just like alone time just is really beneficial for your mental health too, especially if you're someone that wants to like make something out of their life or anything like that. I feel like it's very beneficial for you to really just sit and reflect on like like your, I guess you can say, your goals, or just like what you want out of life, out of everyday life. It doesn't even have to be even like goals or ambition. It can just be like, what do you enjoy, like when you wake up, or what gets you out of bed every day. And there's really no right or wrong answer. That's the like the best thing about life is it's not so like black and white. I feel like maybe before, like there was maybe like more of a script, like graduate high school, go to college, maybe meet somebody, have a kid, get a house. And I'm not saying that's like not the case anymore, but I feel like there's so much more to life than that, if that makes sense. And I feel like people are very hyper fixated on like a script, because maybe like they don't really have a script like in their own head maybe. And I know that's very hard to do. I feel like I'm very fortunate enough to like have like a clear path in my life, and I know that it took many years to like kind of be really set on it. But I feel like that if the more you listen to like your soul, the more that you're just gonna feel just more yourself and just better. And I personally think right now, I know right now that I feel like, even though I'm not necessarily there where I want to be yet, I feel more me than I ever have been. And it's crazy to think about, because oh shit, I gotta get ready for work in a little bit. But um it's just crazy to think, because like I feel like it took so long to for me to really be confident in the path that I'm taking. And with listening to your soul and letting it guide you, I feel like you're gonna learn a lot of things about yourself when it comes to just like what you enjoy, what you want out of life, the things that you love to do, whether it is like a hobby, or maybe like learning something new, or anything it may be. I feel like people just think that like you always have to be making money, or or just like or pretty much just avoiding your problems to like kind of go about life, and I feel like that's just not the way to go. um but yeah, I feel like just a good thing to think about is just really like, letting your soul um kind of guide you to where you want to be. And I feel like the more that you kind of train your mind to like to go after that, instead of less your mind or your heart, is like the more that you'll just feel like more appreciative, because your soul is really like, it's the quietest in the room, but it's the most important. Like I feel like right now, like especially in recent years, I feel like I've gotten really close to like what my soul desires. And I feel like that wouldn't have been the case if I wouldn't have like really took the time to know myself better, and to really like think about how I want to go with my life, and what I want out of every day. um and I just feel like that, how can you like really like complain about that in a way. Sometimes like, the biggest like payouts is like, the process of it is like the hardest, but it's like when you kind of get to that point of like you genuinely thinking that like you're living like the life that you want to live, then I feel like that it is going to be much more clear for you when it comes to just making decisions and stuff like that. Because I do feel like a lot of people are kind of going about life kind of like, and I'm not judging at all either, obviously, but I feel like a lot of people are just like avoiding their problems. And it's like, it's no wonder why people kind of like aren't really happy with their life. And I know it's easier said than done and stuff. um People have like different circumstances, I'm sure, and people have like different upbringings. But I feel like at some point it's like you have to like make that change that you want in your life. And it's gonna be hard, but I feel like everything that is hard is gonna be easy. And if you do the hard things right now, then it should be easy for you. And I feel like most people are kind of like digging their own grave and making things hard for themselves. And it's like, or maybe easy for themselves, because I feel like obviously people like want comfort over uncomfortability. And if you keep doing the comfortable things every day and just not really like getting out of like your shell, or just like whatever you want out of life, then it's like the harder it is that's gonna be in the future. So I choose to like, do the hard things and just really like reflect and think about, what I want out of this life. And I feel like by me like kind of voluntarily like making my life hard. I'm not saying like my life is hard, but like hard, like making it hard in the sense of like reflection, and really like being honest with yourself, because I don't think a lot of people are very honest with themselves these days, and they get really distracted on like, what's going on the internet, what's going on in the news. And whatever the fuck like is um pretty much like whatever news thing is going on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or whatever you're on. And they never like have the time to really think about what they want. And that's pretty unfortunate, because I feel like this will be avoided if they just kind of let their soul guide them. And I know like I kind of just been saying that this whole video, but I really think that's true. And I feel like if you do that, you'll never regret anything that you make in life. But yeah, I gotta go to work now. Peace out.